afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first webinar for 2026. Today's session is part of our learning series, and this is on SharePoint OneDrive and Teams. Where the heck are my files? Which was the original title, but we decided to pull that out. But I think we've all had that experience at some point where you download a file or you try to save it somewhere, and then you have a hard time figuring out where that sucker lives. And so today we'll be able to explore a little bit of how file management works within the 365 universe, and hopefully everybody will have a better understanding of where to find those files. As we move forward today, after I do my normal kickoff, we'll be joined by JoLynn Rihn, who those who have watched our learning series webinars in the past should know quite well. I'm the VP of Marketing and Communications for Sourcepass. JoLynn works for Virtual Training Company and is a master Microsoft instructor. And so for the past couple of years, we've done many sessions with JoLynn, and those that have taken part in these sessions have really appreciated her insights in ways to get more value out of the 365 universe. So as I mentioned, this is part of our learning series webinars. We actually have two different webinar series on a monthly cadence. On the second Wednesday of the month, we typically feature our learning series webinars. These are designed to have you get more out of your IT investments. So many organizations we work with are leveraging the 365 universe. That's why so many of these sessions tend to focus around the use of Microsoft 365 in some way, shape, or form. But we also periodically are joined by our Quest team, which is our revolutionary service platform. So last year we had 4 Quest webinars. This year we're going down to 3, but do keep an eye on the upcoming schedule. We also have our digital transformation series, which runs typically the 4th Wednesday of the month, and those tend to focus more on big picture planning, on whether it's emerging technologies, cloud adoption, AI, those sorts of subjects. A lot of governance and compliance as well. If you're curious about any of the webinars we've run in the past, please bookmark our video library at sourcepass.com/video-library. You can get to that under the insight sections of the menu on our website, but I would suggest once you get to that page, go ahead and save that link. We do not gatekeep any of our prior webinars. We tend to post them about a week after the live session has aired. This is live while we're doing this. That's why I sound like I do. I'm dealing with a little bit of a cold. But if you have coworkers that you'd like to be able to watch this session afterwards, have them check the video library in about a week's time, and you should find it there. All of our previous sessions from the last couple of years are there as well for both the digital transformation and learning series. We do have many upcoming webinars moving forward. We actually have one that's geared specifically for those in the public sector coming up next week on managing projects with Microsoft Planner and To-Do. If you're not a public sector employee and you want to sit in on that, feel free to join that session as well. It's just that some of the examples JoLynn will be going through are designed for public sector employees, but the concepts are universal. I mentioned the digital transformation series on January 28th. We're going to be talking with a couple of our key engineering and cloud services folks, talking about cloud scalability and operational efficiency in sort of a panel discussion. So feel free to come there and you can ask some of our smart people smart questions, and hopefully we'll give you some smart answers. And then next month, our learning series will feature Excel for finance professionals and accountants. Last year, we had done some surveys. We always do at the end of these sessions, asking for suggestions for content. And overwhelmingly, the feedback came back, we want more Excel. So we actually have 4 different Excel sessions planned for our learning series this year, the first of which is Excel for finance professionals and accountants. So if you work in the finance team for your organization, please, this isn't just for CPAs and so forth. You'll be able to get a lot of value out of next month's session as well. If you have questions during today's session, feel free to enter them in the Q&A. And at the end of today's session, Kat, who's in the background, who also sounds probably worse than I do, she's also fighting the sickness that's going around. She will be sending out the survey, and as demonstrated, we do read those and we do take the feedback to plan future sessions. So if you have suggestions for us, please let us know. So I've taken enough of your time. At this point, what I'll do is ask JoLynn to come on screen and join us, and she can introduce herself to you and take the wheel from here. JoLynn, floor is yours.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Dave. So welcome everyone to our session. As Dave said, today we're going to be talking about where are my files. I liked the little saying that you said there, Dave. That was pretty good because there's a lot of times that all of us are wondering where our files went. And really, it's kind of what's the decision that you need to make as to where should your files actually be. So we're going to be talking specifically about using Microsoft SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, and Microsoft OneDrive. And we're actually going to be starting today by talking about SharePoint first. The reason I like to start with talking about SharePoint when it comes to document management is because that seems to be one of the big go-to applications that organizations will use to manage their files. So SharePoint, of course, is if you've ever heard the term SharePoint site, it is web-based. It's an application that we build SharePoint sites. We can have different document libraries, which are going to be available through the SharePoint site. But a document library is one piece to a SharePoint site that we can actually store files in. I say one piece because there are other options, but it's built to manage files. So it is a very popular option. So SharePoint, when we talk about Teams and we talk about OneDrive, are all Microsoft 365 cloud-based applications. So being in the cloud, of course, we can access them via the internet. We can access them also by having the apps on our phone. We can use desktop choices as well to get to things. I'll show you a few examples of what I mean by some of those options here. So when we talk about SharePoint document libraries, every SharePoint site has at least one document library included, generically called documents. It's usually the main central place where organizations will save their files. So it being SharePoint, just so you know, everyone that is a part of that SharePoint site where the document library resides will have access to the files within that document library. Also, SharePoint is a very powerful program, and it does allow the capabilities of having permission levels in different parts of a document library, or we could have a SharePoint site that has 4 document libraries, but I may only have access to 2 of the 4. So we can set up different permission levels for each document library. So with that all being said, let's see what a document library can do. I call SharePoint document libraries the top of the scale. They are going to give you the most capabilities built in. You'll see some examples of that in just a second. So first off, I'm in just a generic SharePoint site. You can see on my navigation at the top, I've got this link called Documents. If I click on it, it will open the document library. What you're going to find at the very top of the window is going to be a menu that is going to be directly related to the document library itself. So the tools that you're seeing up here at the top are all the tools that we use to help manage the files. So how does a file actually get into a document library? Well, they can actually get here multiple ways. One way is to create it while you're in the document library. By going to the menu at the top left, we could click New. From there, we could choose to create a new folder to organize things in, or we could choose what type of document you want to create, whether it's going to be an Excel file, etc. So let's say that I click on Excel Workbook. I could then be creating this Excel workbook, and maybe we're going to track our 2026 sales from the Eastern region. We could be creating this workbook right here, but what's happening is when I go to save this file, it's going to save it directly to the document library that I was in when I started to create it. So I'm going to go to the top left where it says book, click on that so I can just give this a name, and I'm going to call it 2026 East Region, and I'm going to press enter. It automatically will save any changes that you make to the file because it is a cloud-based application. So anything that is in the cloud, whether it's OneDrive, Teams, or SharePoint, changes automatically get saved. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and close that file for right now. That file will be available here in this document library. You can see right now it's called book, but it will change the name. Magically, it just appeared. 2026 East Region, you can see a few seconds ago, I'm the author of that file. So in this list of all your files down below, you will be able to see different information in each column. You can always add additional columns to your view as well. But by default, you see what type of file is it? Is it a folder, a Word document, PowerPoint, whatever? You see the name, who modified it, who was it modified by. But then I have a column that you may not see if you're looking at a SharePoint document library just yet. But this is actually called sign-off status. This is a column that automatically does appear once you've used a specific feature, which is called a workflow. I'm going to show you that workflow here in just a moment, so I'll come back to that. But I'm also seeing a column for file size and then add column. Add column would allow you to add additional columns to put in metadata about a specific file. Like if you wanted to have a folder of policies and procedures and they're going to have a due date, they need to be reviewed once a year, you could add in a new column that is a date field and enter a date of when that file needs to be reviewed. Just to give you an example of how you could use that. Now I'm going to click cancel on that for right now and talk a little bit more first about the menu going across the top. Other ways to get a file into the document library is if you had an existing file that resides someplace else, like you have a network drive that you're starting to clean out and move files into SharePoint, etc., you could go to upload. If you click upload at the top left of the window, you can choose files, folders, or templates. I'm just going to click files. And then I could navigate to wherever my files are located and then bring all of those files in. So let's say that I come into, I'll just scroll down here a little bit, come into this training documents, go into Excel, and let's say that I have an Excel workbook that I want to be bringing in. I'll do this analysis workbook. I'm going to click open. It automatically will add it to this document library. But keep in the backs of your minds that this is actually making a copy of it. The original still resides back in the original location. So be careful with that because you probably don't want to keep the same file in two different places. You'll be confused on which one you should use. So a good habit is to go back and get rid of it out of the original location after you bring it into SharePoint. So this is going to be the main document everybody's going to use. Because of the fact that these are cloud-based files, whoever has rights to this document library, like I said, has rights to these files, and we can do what is called live collaboration, meaning that we can have multiple people in the document library at the same time. So we can be updating things together, which is a fantastic feature to have. But back to the menu at the top for a moment. Another way to bring a file in is just drag and drop it. You could have a screen that you have File Explorer on one side, you have your SharePoint document library. You can drag from one and drop it into the other. So lots of different ways already that we've talked about how you can get a file. But I'm going to mention one more, because what if I actually go to Excel? What if I go to Excel, create a new workbook? What if I create a blank new workbook directly from the application? Can I save it to that document library? 100% yes. You can go to the top left, click where it says Book 1. You, of course, can go to your File menu, do the Save As, however it is you get into your Save window. From there, you can actually choose where you want to save it. You can see in the middle of my window, if I want to save it to my OneDrive, I could choose my OneDrive from my business, or if I want to save it to a SharePoint document library, which also includes Teams, I can go to my quick access, which I'll talk about how to get those there, but you can actually go to a previous document library and choose that you want to save to one of those. You Also, of course, have the capability of going straight to the top of your window, choosing on the top right. Right now you can see mine says OneDrive, Virtual Training Company. That's my main document library. I can click on that to go into my Windows File Explorer window, where I could be choosing from my left-hand side where I want to actually save this. So I'm going to choose my OneDrive because I actually have shortcuts in my File Explorer for my SharePoint document libraries. So let's say that I want to save this to my accounting department SharePoint site, to a Teams channel called Accounting Department Accounts Payable. If I want to save this file to that, you can see right here in this window, the folder has an arrow on it, which means it's a shortcut. It's a shortcut to SharePoint directly here in my OneDrive. I'll show you in a second how I got it here. But if I double click on this folder, I could choose another folder to put it in or just keep it right here. I'm just going to keep it right here in the accounts payable folder. I'm going to click at the bottom to give it a name, and I'm going to call it 2026 Accounting Records. Just to give that a name to get started, I'm going to press enter. Now, of course, I could be coming in here and making all my changes to it. It's going to automatically save the changes as I'm working on them. And then when I'm done, I just close it like you normally do. It automatically has saved it to that SharePoint document library. Wasn't the one I was just in. I'll show you that one in just a moment. But how did I get that shortcut to be available through OneDrive? Well, how I did that was on the main menu going across this SharePoint document library, I clicked to this icon called Add Shortcut to OneDrive. When you do that, it adds that shortcut available through OneDrive and File Explorer. So we can be in OneDrive and access SharePoint files and your OneDrive files, or if you go, of course, to File Explorer, you can access any files, whether they're on a flash drive, they're on your C drive, they're in your OneDrive, or if you have this shortcut to SharePoint, you can get to them there as well. So, great option to have. Now, there is an automate feature available on this top menu as well. We're not going to talk about those right at this moment. I'll talk about some automation features that we have available within our files. But what's the benefit of really having a file in SharePoint? Well, one of the benefits is any cloud-based file, so even OneDrive, we have what is referred to as version history. Version history allows us to go back to previous versions of a file. But if I created a file on my C drive, and then 6 months later, we went to SharePoint and I bring the file into SharePoint, or it was on my network drive and now I'm bringing it into SharePoint. The version history doesn't start with that file until it's brought in to the cloud. So the past history that you had of that file, unfortunately, does not carry over. But once it's in the cloud, you will have access to it. So how does that work? Well, let's say that I go to a file. I have this Word document here called Communication and Time Management. I can manage that file by just hesitating on the file. I get information about it, but I could right click or click the dot, dot, dot menu, and I'm going to get a full menu of everything that I can do to manage this file, which includes how do I want to open it. I could share it. I'll talk about that in a little bit. I could delete the file, which, by the way, if you delete a file that is in the cloud, each cloud, so a SharePoint site, your OneDrive, they have a recycle bin. So if you delete a file, it automatically goes to the recycle bin. You have 93 days by default to go back and recover it out of the recycle bin. Love that capability. But you also could save it as a favorite. You could add a shortcut to it. You could rename it. You could also pin it to the top. I had a different document pinned to the top of this library. So if you have a file that you're working on regularly right now, pin it to the top so you don't have to scan through all the other folders and files to get to it. It will be sitting at the top. You can quickly and easily get to it. When you're done, just unpin it again. It doesn't leave the library. It just won't appear at the top anymore. You can also move it to a different place. You could copy it to a different place. But there's this feature right here called version history. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and you're going to see that it opens up a window showing me previous versions of this file. So every time this file is modified, it's going to keep a version of it, and it's going to show different information about that version. If you want to open a previous version of a file, just click on the link under the modified column and it will reopen that version of the file. Now it opened it on my other screen. Let me just slide that over here so you can see what it does. So here's the file in the first version of it, and you can see at the top it says read only. I'm going to say edit document, and I'm going to make a change to this. 2026, and I'll just do that and I'll close it. What that's going to do is once I leave this and go back into the version history, you're going to see there's been a change in the version history. I now have 2 versions of that file. So the original file was the one that I opened, and I didn't have another version of it. But as soon as I made a change to it, closed it, came back in, kind of refreshed my version history, I now have 2 versions. If I want to go back to the previous version, I can click on the link under modified. It's going to automatically reopen that document, and it's going to say previous version. To make this previous version become the latest version, I could click restore. That would restore it back to that copy. So then I'd have 3 because I'd still have the one I made changes to, etc., because it keeps all versions. Now, do I have to be in my document library to get version history? The answer is no. You can actually be here. You could be in OneDrive. You could be in Microsoft Word or whichever application your file is. I could open up Microsoft Word, go to the name of the file on the menu at the top, and access version history directly within the app as well. So different places to get there. Now I'm going to go ahead and close this window for version history and show you another feature that you may want to use at some point in time. And that's actually checking a file out. When you have a shared environment like SharePoint and Teams, which are meant for sharing, what if you have a file that you want to go in and make changes to, but you don't want other people in it while you're making those changes? You can open up a file exclusively by checking the file out. We don't have that capability in OneDrive, but we do here in SharePoint. So I'm going to go to this company orders Excel workbook. I'm going to do a right click. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom where it has the more category, and then I'm going to click checkout. What it's going to do is add a red circle with an arrow next to the name of the file so that when others come into the library, they see that I have it checked out. So they could open it, but they can't make changes to it. They won't see what I'm doing either. So now I'm going to open the file. I'm going to make my necessary changes to it, which I'm going to come down and I'm going to rename this worksheet, and I'm going to name it 2020. Oops, sorry. I'm going to name it 2026 sales orders. Just so you can see, I'm just going to go in and make a couple of changes. Oops, I didn't spell that correctly. Let me fix that spelling. Sales. Oops, I keep losing my mouse. That's okay. 2026 sales, I'll just call it. I could go up to the top. I could make changes to it. This is going to be 2026 East region. You know, whatever changes it is that I need to make to the file, nobody else can get in. Nobody can see what I'm doing, whatever. But when you're done, go ahead and close it like you normally do. So I'm going to go ahead and close it. I still have the file checked out. If I hesitate on that file, I get this little window that pops up. From that window, it knows I have it checked out, so it's actually giving me the link to check it back in. If I click check in, I can add comments to document the changes that I had made. So let's say that I changed the dates for 2026. I'm going to click check in. Once it's checked back in, the red circle will disappear. Others will now be able to go in. They'll see the changes that I made. But in behind the scenes, it will disappear. That red circle will disappear in a second, but I'm going to go back and right click again. I'm going to go into that version history, and I now have this version 6 on this document, but notice the comments on the right-hand side. So if you check a file out and add comments to it, you're going to actually see the comments in the version history. That's where they get stored. And keep in mind that whatever you write in there, others can see as well. It's not just comments for yourself, so don't put anything confidential in there. Everyone has access to that. But I love that because that way I can document what it is that I did. Like if I had to update a tax code that is being used by a named ranger, whatever the case would be, I can make that comment to say this is what I did when I checked it out. But anyway, I'm going to close that version history because we have a lot more to go through in our short period of time. So other things that you can do to manage a file that is part of a document library. I'm going to right click on this company orders Excel workbook again. And another option that you have here is under the automate category. So keep in mind, this is a Microsoft 365 application, and they all work together. So SharePoint and Teams are connected. SharePoint and Outlook are connected. Teams and Outlook are connected. OneDrive is connected with SharePoint and Teams and Planner and Outlook and whatever. All these apps work together. They work very seamlessly together. So what I want to show you right now is built into SharePoint. Not all these are available in OneDrive. Some of them are, but some of them aren't. We have built-in workflows. We don't have to create a Power Automate automation feature for some of these because they're built in, because they're very common, and we don't have to understand a lot about Power Automate. From Automate, I can hesitate on flows, and it's going to give me the ability to request sign-off. It's got one other post a message to Teams, but I'm going to click this request sign off. This is going to open a new pane on the right-hand side of my window. From there, I'm going to be able to choose the person or persons I want to send a message to, a notification to let them know I need them to review this file. What they are going to receive is an Outlook email. They are going to receive a banner notification at the bottom right of their screen. They're also going to receive a notification in Microsoft Teams. Now, I'm just going to say that I want myself to approve it so you can see how the workflow goes. So I'm going to put in my own name. Of course, normally you wouldn't do that, but then in the message box, that's the message they will get in their notification. So I could say something like, please review this file, blah, blah, blah. I won't put more, but just so you could see. Then down at the bottom, I'm going to click Run Flow. By the way, when I run Flow, it uses 5 applications in the background. 5. It's using Outlook, it's using Teams, it's using notifications, it's using the approval app built into 365, and of course SharePoint. I'm going to click Run Flow. Now in Power Automate, we would have had to set all that up manually. Here it's built in and it just worked. It automatically has notified myself that I need to approve a file from myself. And then I'll get a link to the file and I can then open that file and approve or reject it. Let me show you first Microsoft Teams. So here in Microsoft Teams, I have a notification that shows up in my activity category on the left. When I go to that, I can see that JoLynn Rihn sent you a request. On the right-hand side, it's using the approval app to show me the status of it. So it's pending response, which by the way, back in my library, that sign off status column I mentioned, it says pending approval right now in that column. And then once I'm done, it will say approved or reject depending on which one I do. So I would normally click on the link for the file, review the file, and then I could go in to enter in comments back to the person that sent it to me, and then click either reject or approve. When I do that, that person's going to get notified again, letting them know if it was approved or rejected. They'll get notified in Outlook, they'll get a banner notification, it will update also here in Microsoft Teams, and back in SharePoint in the document library, in that status column, it's going to automatically update as well. All kinds of things are happening that we don't have to do. We don't have to work as hard to maintain what's happening with this file. Pretty awesome. So anyway, let me type in some comments. If you change the dates to reflect 2026 instead of 2025, oops, can't type, you can then send this to the team. Okay, so I sent a message back to the person saying, you fix this, it's good to go. You don't have to send it to me again for reapproval. I'm going to go ahead and click approve. That person's getting those notifications back. It's updating it in the background on all these other places. In a second, I'm going to get another activity notification because I'm playing both parties, letting me know that it was approved. So here's my activity that just came in. Final status is approved. So it has that wonderful workflow to keep us in the loop as to what's going on. But I was also getting notified back here in Outlook. So just to show you, if I come into my Outlook, oops, I've got all these other notifications that I'll show you how these are all getting there in just a second here. But just so you could see, oops, that one's been added. I can see here's the one that was approved, but here's the one that I received that I could have gone through here instead of Microsoft Teams to do the link, etc., but it updated it to say it's already been approved. So anyway, just so you could see, I get notified via Outlook as well. So not just in Teams, we can be managing those through Outlook as well, all depending on what it is that works best for you as a user. I'm in Teams a lot, so a lot of times I bounce back and forth between Teams and Outlook, but whichever place I am, I'll do it directly from there. It doesn't matter. Okay, pretty awesome. But let me jump back to my document library. So remember when I was talking about that column for sign-off status? Notice that it says approved. And it updated it in the history, the version history of that file, to say that that was approved on this date by this person. So we see the approval in a lot of different areas. But enough about that for right now. We've got some other things that I want to mention, especially when it comes to these SharePoint document libraries. Like I said, we don't have all these approvals built into OneDrive. We just have a few. But based on this entire document library, what if I'm the person that's responsible for the files in this library? I could actually go to the menu at the top for managing the entire document library. I could go to Automate. I could hesitate on rules, and I can click create rule. When I do that, I get 4 different types of templates that I could get started with directly here through SharePoint. So if I want to take action, some type of action, when a file or metadata is modified, like somebody else saves it, there's been an update to a deadline date, whatever. A new file is added to the document library, or what if I want to get notified if a file is deleted from the document library, or a date is approaching? Like when I was talking about that metadata, if we had a date column and we say that that is going to be for, when the policy needs to be reviewed, we could say, notify me 7 days before that date. I mean, it's pretty amazing what it is that we can do. Well, I'm going to say, if a file is deleted, just to give you an idea, each one of these, when you click on it, gives you a window like this that you just basically fill in the blanks. It's a template. So it says when a file is deleted, send an email to, who do we want to send an email to? We can put in an email address, or you could choose yourself from the drop down. I'm going to say I want to get notified if somebody deletes a file, because maybe they accidentally deleted it but didn't realize it. I want to go back and get it right away. I can add in a custom message, and I could say something like, a file was deleted from this doc library, whatever, put in a custom message. Then just click create. What's going to happen is it opens up the manage rules window where you could see all rules that are for this document library. This is our manage rules window that you can go back and open and edit these, turn rules off, whatever it is that you need to do. I'm just going to close it. Then I'm going to purposely delete a file. I'm going to go to, let me go to this contract signed, and I'm going to delete this file. I'm going to right click. I'm going to left click on delete. I'm going to say, yes, I want to delete that file. I'm going to get an email notification in Outlook letting me know that that file was deleted. So these are ways that we can help to manage these files that are a part of this document library. And by using these built-in workflows, we don't have to do a lot of work. They do it automatically because we're just basically filling in the blanks. Now, there are a few others, but based on our time today, I won't go through the other options, but just know that SharePoint document libraries are going to have the most capabilities. I always call it the top of the line when it comes to storing and managing your files. So what files should go into this SharePoint document library? Any files that you want everybody to have access to that has access to this SharePoint site. That's these files. Everybody would have access to them. If you open a file, somebody else can go in there with you. And how would you know somebody else is in a file with you? Well, when you open a file, whether it's Word, Excel, whatever, it's going to show profile circles of everybody that's in the file with you at the top right. Okay, just so you know that it does that. But let me dive in to Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams does use SharePoint. So let me go back to Microsoft Teams here. Oops, there it is. So when you are in Microsoft Teams, if you go to the left-hand side and click Teams, every time a new team is created, whether you create it, somebody else creates it, IT creates it, whatever, a new SharePoint site is created because Teams, inside Teams, is SharePoint. Okay, now I'll show you what I meant by all of that. But remember that accounting department that I talked about earlier? When I created an Excel file, I'm going to go to my accounting department team. I have this channel called Accounts Payable. When I click on Accounts Payable, we can have files that have been shared in the Post tab. We could have files that were emailed to the channel. Lots of different ways that files can be a part of a channel. They could also have been in a channel meeting and shared during the meeting. But we always have a shared tab at the top of a channel. That shared tab is SharePoint. It is, well, the whole thing is SharePoint, but it is a SharePoint document library. So it's going to have the same capabilities as what I just talked to you about in SharePoint. There's only going to be one difference, and I'll show you what the difference is. But what you can see right at the top is the same menu that I was talking about when we were in SharePoint. You could do new, you can upload, you have add shortcut to OneDrive. I could even go to the menu on the right and go to automate. So we get those same capabilities. The only difference is we will see open in SharePoint. From this menu, or if you right click on a file or folder, you will see open in SharePoint. Let me show you what I mean by that. If you click open in SharePoint, it's going to open this document library directly in SharePoint. You will see exactly the same folders, get the same menu, the same files, all of that. But if you look at the name of the SharePoint, I should say Microsoft Teams name, at the top left, it says accounting department, but you can see that it's a Teams SharePoint site because it's got the Teams icon. Also, the navigation is on the left-hand side. If I go to home, Home is going to be the home page of that SharePoint site. When you first go in there, it's generic. Somebody has to design it. So this is pretty generic. I made a couple of changes to it, but do we have to use SharePoint? No, you don't. If you just want to use your Microsoft team, you don't really have to go into SharePoint because everything in your Teams document library is the same. So you don't have to if you don't want to, but you do have that as the background. Teams is just a front end program to SharePoint in the background. Okay, now I'm just going to close the SharePoint site because I really don't need it. I'm going to be back here in Microsoft Teams. Sure, I'm in Teams here, and I'm on that accounts payable. So here in this accounts payable document library, which is available to everybody that is a part of the accounting department team, because it's a standard channel, I have all these different folders. I have all these different files, and notice this one that has this little star by the name of it, 2026 Accounting Records. That's the file I created through Excel a little while ago. When we have something new, it puts that little star, that little crown looking icon next at the top left of the name. But that will disappear after you do a few things. But you could see that it was 21 minutes ago that I was working on that. Notice that I have a star. The star can be used to add this to a favorite, but you can also do that by right-clicking on the file. I also have the share icon. SharePoint document libraries, which include SharePoint and Teams and OneDrive files, all have the universal look and feel and usage of sharing a file. So if I want to share this file or a OneDrive file with somebody that doesn't have access to it, you can share a file. I'll demonstrate that in OneDrive though, because that's usually where it gets used. Because OneDrive is your personal storage location, SharePoint and Teams is meant for sharing. So it's automatically shared by default with everybody that has rights to that document library. But anyway, just so you could see, if I go to this 2026 accounting records, I can right click the file and I can get a pop-up menu of different options to manage this file. Now, if I go to the menu at the top, like I said, we get the same, we get the new, we get the upload. So if you want to bring a file in from someplace else or create a new one, you definitely can do that. But the other things that I wanted to briefly mention here real quick, if I go back to this managing the menu at the top for the whole document library, I can go to this automate. I could go to rules, create rule, and I get the same choices as I did when I was just in SharePoint, just so you know it is the same. Okay. Now I'm going to go to a file, just do a right click again, just so you could see. When you do that right click, you get the same menu. Now, mine wasn't opening, it was opening kind of weird when I did it a second ago, but this is the full menu. This is what you normally get when you right click. And it's exactly the same as what you got in SharePoint. So you can choose how you want to open it. You can delete it, download it, rename it. You have your automate features with your sign-off capabilities. You have your version history. I could go to the more category and check out the file. I get exactly apples to apples with what we see in SharePoint. The only difference is open in SharePoint, like I showed you already from the main menu going across the top. So everything that I showed you in SharePoint, we can do here in a Teams channel on the shared tab, because it is exactly the same as a SharePoint document library, because it is a SharePoint document library. Okay, so I won't go through all of those bells and whistles anymore, but depending on how you want to organize things, just so you know, in OneDrive or a SharePoint document library, if I have something that I want to go into a folder, like let's say that I'm going to do a new folder, I'm going to go to new, I'm going to click folder, and I'm going to say 2026 data. And I'm going to choose a color because we can have different colors for folders. Click create, and I will now have that folder available here in my list. What if I want certain files to actually go in that folder? I could select the files, I could drag them up to that folder, or do the right click and do a move to, and I can move files to a folder. So sometimes you'll get started with a document library or OneDrive and just put them in the main folder. You don't have to keep them there. You can always go back and move them, just so you're aware. Okay? But that's all I'm going to talk about right now for those SharePoint document libraries. But remember that icon, Add Shortcut to OneDrive. How do you get to OneDrive? Well, one way is right here in Microsoft Teams. On the left-hand side, you have a shortcut to OneDrive. If you click on it, it's going to open up the OneDrive app. You can do exactly the same thing in Outlook, or you could actually go to the internet, go to your Microsoft account, and open up OneDrive from there. It's going to look exactly the same if you do it through the internet browser or you do it through your Teams app. It works exactly the same, no differences. But what do you see when you come in? On the left-hand side, you have a menu. You'll by default be on the Home tab, and then across the top you're going to see these are the files I was recently working on. Here's a list of all my recent files, and the cool thing about that is it's not just OneDrive files under this recent category, it's all files. Whether they came from a SharePoint document library or directly through a Teams document library, etc. So here's company orders, here's that communication and time management I was in. All these files are available right here. But what if I just want to see my OneDrive? On the left-hand side, click My Files. This is going to show you every folder and every file in your OneDrive. Now, notice some of these folders have this arrow. This is that shortcut to that accounting department accounts payable channel in Teams. If I click on it, it shows me exactly the same files and the same exact folders. Here's that folder I just created. I can click on it and I can have access to those files. But just so you know, if you are in OneDrive and I'm right-click a file that is actually a SharePoint file, I'm not going to get exactly the same features as if I were in SharePoint. So sometimes I'll look at this and it's like, oh, I wanted to be able to automate this and I don't have that capability from here. I can go into a few things, but not everything. I might just want to say open in SharePoint. Or depending on what it is, I could go to the left-hand side and I might have it added to my quick access, which is one of your menu choices to add a document library to your quick access. Like if I go to where it says accounting department here on the left, here is all of my accounting department team channel folders, SharePoint folders, and all files. So if I go to accounts payable, I can get to everything in that channel this way also. Lots of ways to do the same things. But let me go back to the left-hand side and click My Files again for a second. And let's say that I go into this business information. I scroll down and I go into this training documents and I go back to that Excel file. Here's all those Excel files I was showing you earlier. If I go to one of these files and do a right click, I get the same menu that you saw a moment ago, but these are the only choices you get for OneDrive. This menu is great. It's giving you quite a few different capabilities, which includes how do you want to open it? You can preview it. You can copy a link, rename it, delete it, save it as a favorite, move it, open it in SharePoint, blah, blah, blah. You have a lot of different options of what it is that you can do. Just so you're aware, you do have version history. So it works exactly the same as if it were a SharePoint file. So we get different capabilities depending on if it's OneDrive or if it's SharePoint. SharePoint's going to give you the full capabilities of managing a file, but OneDrive is fantastic because it's your personal storage location. Nobody else has rights to it but you. So this is for you only. Now, what if I wanted to share a file though with somebody else? You could see I have different columns going across the top here in my OneDrive. One of the columns is called sharing. If it says shared, that file has been shared with other people. If it says private, I'm the only one that has access to that file. So I'm going to go to this analyzing data file and I'm going to say I want to share that with a coworker. I only have one person I want to share it with. If I needed to share it with my entire department, I would do that through SharePoint Document Library. Make sure that that file is available there as opposed to saving it to OneDrive. It really should be moved into SharePoint so that they automatically are going to have rights to it. But you could always right click or just hesitate on a file and click the share icon. Once you do that, no matter if you're sharing it from SharePoint or sharing it from OneDrive, you will be able to put in the email address of the person you want to share it with. You can type in a little message, please look at this file, blah, 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 add some information, and click send. When you share a file with somebody, they do have full rights to the file. If you don't want them to have full rights to the file, go to the pencil icon at the top right. From that drop down, you could say they can view, but they can't make changes. Or you could even say they can view it, can't make changes, and they can't download, which means they can't save it to their computer. Now, besides just clicking send and sending this to someone, you could go down to the bottom and click copy link. Copy link, then you could go to wherever you want to put it and paste it. Or you have this link settings icon, the gears icon at the bottom. That is another way to manage permissions. When you open that gears icon for the link settings, you could say only the people within your organization, only the people I choose. You can even set an expiration date. Let's say that I'm going to share this file with some vendors, but I only want them to have access to this file until Friday. I could put in an expiration date. I also could set a password. Just so you know, you could do those extra features. And if you do those, click apply, then go ahead and send it or copy the link. And whatever changes you had made in that link settings will be added to the file. So once you click send, it's going to change this sharing column to say that this is now shared. So we'll automatically update that in just a moment. But what if you got a file shared with you from somebody else and you get an email, because that's what it's going to do, is email you letting you know this file has been shared with you. It's going to give you a link to the file. But what if it's been 2 weeks and you need to now go back to that file? Do you have to go find that email with that link? No. Right here from OneDrive, on the left-hand side, you can click the shared category, and it gives you at the top left, it says with you, by you. This is going to give you 2 different filtered lists to get back into the files that you have shared or files that were shared with you. So here's the file I just shared. You can see it says date shared just now. I could go back into that file. Or by you, I could go into a file that was shared with me by somebody else, etc., or the files that I have shared. So it's a filtered list. Easy way to get to them. Also on the left-hand side, if I want to go into a file I saved as a favorite, I can. Here's my link to my recycle bin. But I really like these quick access features that we have at the bottom because they give you quick access to SharePoint document libraries. Not that that's your only way to get there, because remember, you could do that shortcut. If you do that shortcut to that SharePoint document library, you can also be utilizing File Explorer. So if I go into my File Explorer, my Windows File Explorer, on the left-hand side, I have a shortcut to my business OneDrive. You will see exactly the same files, exactly the same folders that you saw a moment ago, including the accounting department accounts payable. Because I did that shortcut to OneDrive, I have access to it here. The quick access things I only get in OneDrive. I won't get quick access features here in File Explorer. So if you're a File Explorer user, you could double click. Here's all the same files and folders you saw earlier. If I go into that new one I created called 2026 data, here's those files. If I right-click those files, I do not get the same menu as I did when I was in OneDrive. I don't get a menu that is for SharePoint. I get the Windows File Explorer menu. But as you can see, I could hesitate on OneDrive and get a couple of features from OneDrive, just so you could see. But otherwise, I can open it, I can share it, I can copy it, rename it, those types of things. I don't get the same capabilities as if it were in OneDrive or if it were a SharePoint file. I don't get those features. But I really like having the capability of having my cloud files be available in different places so that I don't have just one place to go to. I can go to multiple places to get those files. So you have a decision to make. The next time that you create a new file, think about who needs access to it. Is this file just for you and you only? If so, you should probably save it to OneDrive. But if it's a file that your whole department needs or everybody that's working on this project with you, your whole company needs it, then it should probably go to SharePoint. Now, where in SharePoint should it go? Well, it depends. Is it part of a team or just a SharePoint site? So find which place it would be best suited, which document library or team and team's channel it should go to. But I can't say enough about having the ability to be able to work with others on a file and to have the management capabilities that we do with SharePoint and OneDrive. I no longer ever save anything to my C drive. Everything to me is either going to OneDrive or to a SharePoint document library. So I get those extra capabilities that we didn't have back in network drives or a flash drive or a C drive capability. This to me is where we need to be in the future. This is how we need to be able to work with and manage our files. Okay. So Dave, did we have anybody with any questions? I'll bring it back to you to see if we have any questions.
Yeah, let me get all of my mic and camera back live again. There were a couple of posts that were done a little bit ago, one of which is kind of flummoxing. I've never heard of this before, but I'll go to that one second. Okay. This person said they always try to keep an original version of any data they export and receive, but how do I keep an original data when I'm in a shared file?
So you're always going to have that original version of that file. Because remember, we have that version history. So when that file is brought in, it always keeps that original. But if you want to have a template of an original file, maybe you should be looking at doing a template that you could always go back to. An example of that would be, let's say here for 2026, I'm going to have all of my products stored in a file, and I'm going to do that once a month. I could save that as a template and have that be my original file. Then next month I make a copy of that template and I call it February, etc., etc. Otherwise, version history is your answer. Okay.
Okay, very good. The next question, same person asked, and this is a new one for me. Sometimes in a SharePoint folder, the screen shakes or vibrates. What causes that, and how do you stop that from happening?
Oh my goodness.
Right?
I have not ever heard of that happening.
I actually Googled it. The closest I can find is that there is a known glitch specifically with PowerPoint files, that if you store a PowerPoint presentation in SharePoint and open PowerPoint, it'll move some of the, do weird things with like embedded images and so forth. That was as close as I could find in some quick like text searching.
Now, was that actually related to opening it in the online version through SharePoint?
No idea.
For PowerPoint?
No idea.
Because I've heard of that glitch.
Oh, that's
interesting. I thought they fixed it. I thought they fixed it, but I would
say for Tidu, I think you were the one who posted that question. If that persists, or the next time it happens and you're a client of ours, submit that service ticket. Let's have our service team take a look, because I have not heard of that being a known issue in the past. So lucky you get to be patient zero. It's always fun to deal with issues that nobody else has to deal with. So.
Right? Exactly.
We just had another question from Andrea Powers. Hey, Andrea. She's a longtime client of ours. I've worked with her for a good 15 plus years. Can the default for copy link be changed from anyone to people within our organization?
So once you have a file that has been shared with somebody, you can go back in and manage the sharing capabilities. So if I go back in and right click on a file, whether it's OneDrive or SharePoint, go into manage access, you could change the permission levels. So you could say stop sharing completely. Sometimes I want to stop sharing and then reshare it with different permissions, but otherwise, and this isn't a shared file, and I apologize, but I could go to who I'm sharing it with, whether it's a group of people or a single person, and change the sharing capabilities. So going to manage access.
Yep.
Okay.
Very good. Awesome. If anybody else has any other questions, feel free to pop them in real quick. I just wanted to share a couple of anecdotes because there's OneDrive has a lot of power, but it also requires a little bit of user knowledge, and that's why sessions like today are so important. I follow a historian on one of the social platforms, I think Instagram, and he posted a link this week with a rant about OneDrive. And I'll have to see if I can find it again because it was completely outside the scope of the topics he typically talks about. But in his particular case, what he was complaining about was he had synced all of his local files with his OneDrive, went into the OneDrive website through the browser, for whatever reason, deleted all of the files. And of course, he had it enabled where it was a two-way sync. So he goes to sleep that night, wakes up the next day, and all of the local copies of his files were deleted off of his computer because, of course, OneDrive thinks, well, if you don't want them in the cloud, you don't want them locally either. Right. And his comment was, this is ridiculous functionality. Who would want this out of a backup platform? And I commented, there's your problem. It's not a backup platform.
It's not
a file management platform, right?
Right.
And so I think if anybody has ever in their mind positioned or thought of OneDrive as some sort of a local file backup, it is not a backup. It is a file sync, and there's a big difference there. The second anecdote I wanted to offer, and this is why third-party backup of your files is so critical. This was probably 5 or 6 years ago now, but we had a financial services client who made it their policy that anytime an employee was let go or left the organization, they would disable their account for 60 days with their manager having access to be able to kind of move over what they thought was important. And then they wanted us to automatically delete that account from existence. So there wasn't any legacy files kicking around indefinitely for employees that were no longer there. So as luck would have it, the employee who was let go after like July 4th weekend used to create a quarterly report that was saved in their OneDrive and shared it with other employees. The beginning of September rolls around, 60 days later, that user account was deleted. Beginning of October rolls around, we get a service ticket asking, hey, why can none of us access this file that so-and-so used to, update? They're no longer here. We need access to it. And that file no longer existed because after, based on internal policy, after 60 days, all of their files were deleted and they did not have third-party cloud backup in place, which is that's one simple example of why last year Sourcepass mandated really and asked clients to explicitly sign off if they wanted to opt out on putting backup on their 365 tenants, because use that as a cautionary tale. We've seen instances like that happen again and again. When you had your files stored on a local file server, you used to, I'm sure every organization used to back it up, whether it was to tape or disk to disk or whatever the solution was over the last 25, 30 years. You need to back up your cloud data too. It's critical.
Yes.
So, very good. Doesn't look like there's been any more questions in the Q&A. Kat has been nice enough to share the survey. I'll also just share my screen real quick. So if you want to have the shortcut, you have the QR code there you can scan. That actually goes to our upcoming events page. And just wanted to also share the events@sourcepass.com email. Any of those emails come to both me and Kat. So if you have any questions after the session or want to reach out for whatever reason, feel free to send, rather than trying to remember how to spell my last name, feel free to send an email to events@sourcepass.com, and Kat or I'll get back to you. Hopefully point you in the right direction if you have a question. So, JoLynn, any parting thoughts?
Boy, just really kind of think about where you want to put that file. SharePoint is really a good go-to if you want to share it with somebody else.
Very good. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Hope to see you in an upcoming session. And hopefully you all can avoid the sickness that Kat and I are both dealing with. I wouldn't wish this on anybody. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Hope you feel better.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye.